Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Engaging the Phenomenon. And here today, we are going to do a somewhat of a presentation here. It's going to be called an Introduction to Contact Work. So it's going to be a very basic level presentation on contact. And, we're talking about contact with UFO intelligence or UAP and, again, non-human intelligence. But when I say non-human intelligence, I'm referring to, if I can, non-human intelligence that is, related to UFOs and UAP specifically. So let's get started here. Let me bring this up. And here we go. So an introduction to contact work interactions with UAP non-human intelligences. And of course, I want to start the talk off with a disclaimer. And I don't mean that to discourage anybody by any means, but just for the fact that, you should be aware of what you're getting into. If you're serious about doing contact work, you should know what you're getting into, basically. So here, the first line we got here is contact, even positive, can be disruptive. Now, what does that mean, right? So, you can go out and do contact work, and you can have an extraordinary contact event that seems very positive. However, that could still be disruptive to your life. It could change if you have a 9 to 5 and you're married and you have kids or whatever the situation is. Now, all of a sudden, you have this new dynamic in your life. You have this new understanding of reality. You've had this close encounter with UFOs, or non-human intelligences. Now you have to somehow factor that into your day-to-day, right? For some people, they can make that transition easily. So, it could be one of the greatest things that's happened to you and just only enhance your life. That happens with some people, right? But on the flip side, you could have had this encounter and now you're like, oh my God, this is all real. I'm working this pointless job. I don't, I need to be focusing on this and many other things that can affect your relationship. If you're married or you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or any kind of thing like that, you're going to have to eventually tell them about this now, right? You don't want to keep that from them. Unless you do, which is equally disruptive, right? Because now you're holding back these secrets from your significant other, and that can create an issue. And if they're not as open-minded and you start telling them about this, that could also be disruptive. So, you could have a positive contact experience and there can still be issues. So be aware of that. I've seen it happen. You may think you're ready, and I'm saying that because you could think you're ready, you can handle it. You've been studying UFOs, you've been interested in UFOs for many years or whatever it is, and you go out and you do contact work and you have a contact experience. Number one, you can't predict what that experience is going to be. It's going to unfold however non-human intelligence basically decides it's going to happen. And you might think that you're going to be cool with whatever happens, but again, you'll see. And again, I'm not trying to discourage anybody with these things. What I'm trying to do is add perspective here and put out some positives and some negatives, so there's a balance and a comprehensive overview here. So please keep that in mind. Personal ready of levelness, your personal history. If you have like some deep trauma, right? There's something, not only contact work, but if you have an NDE or even a psychedelic experience or anything to that nature that's impactful on your life, that could dredge up a lot of your personal history. If you have any past trauma, and personal level of readiness is like, are you ready for contact at this stage in your life, right? Maybe not. So please consider that. Psychic and psychological effects, and I put positive and negative because for I I don't want this to sound the wrong way, or I'm not trying to promote this in any kind of way and saying this definitely will happen, but there are correlations with boosted psychic potentials or boosted psi, during or after contact experiences. So I'm not trying to say this is going to make you psychic, but it will open your mind and different centers and potentially your intuition and creativity, and psychological effects, and when I say that about the psychic effects, I mean that could also mean that now all of a sudden your your psychic potentials are more opened up, and all of a sudden you start seeing ghosts or negative things that you didn't really anticipate, right? So opening your psi potentials, or not, it's not always like, oh wow, I'm going to be able to do all this stuff. It's like, yeah, but you can now be open to other things that you're going to have to deal with if you open yourself up to it. And again, this is not me discouraging anybody. This is just putting everything on the table and saying, hey, be aware of what you're getting into. And the psychological effects, again, you could have a super positive psychological effects from this, where you're all of a sudden more open-minded, and you're more compassionate because you have an insight psychologically that we're all kind of wow, I'm having this contact with non-human intelligence, and we are really all the same as human beings, right? We all have a kind of greater unity and connection than we previously thought. And so psychological effects, like, again, I mean, you could have the contact experience and all of a sudden you have increased anxiety because you feel like wow, there's this other very advanced intelligence observing us, right? So there's positive and negatives. Potential physical effects. So there's been reported healings from people who have contact experiences and close encounters, and there's people that have allegedly have harm come to them. And I'm mentioning that because it's been documented. It was the sixth observable biological effects. So there were people who suffered damage allegedly from getting too close to the UFO phenomenon. Now, personally, most of the people I know have not had that occur, especially when they go out and do contact work. I don't recall too many cases, or many more that I can count on one hand, that had negative effects like that. But again, be aware. You don't know what's going to happen, so you should be aware of that. Once it occurs, it's hard to go back. So what does that mean? You go out and you have a close encounter, and let's say it's successful and it works, and all of a sudden now you have to deal with this, right? You can't unknow it now. That it's a real thing. It's one thing reading about UFOs in a book. Once you actually have a close encounter or a contact experience, all of a sudden it's real, and you have to kind of place that. It has to hold a space somewhere in your mind and your life and your heart or whatever, and you can't just go and do it, right? It's there now. It's a reality. So that is something you should be aware of. We're dealing with an advanced intelligence or potential intelligences, which I think is the case. So again, that's something you have to factor in. I mean, it's one thing to read it in a book, but when you realize it directly firsthand, then the implications all of a sudden hit you. Slide 9. Again, I'm not being discouraging, but this is something that was provided in the ATIPs. The ATIP slide 9, that slide 9 talks about, cognitive human interface, but it also talks about psychotronics. So those kind of effects, hearing, a voice or seeing images or gaining insights, that's something that could potentially happen. And here I know, obvious, not a ticket to enlightenment. Some people may think that, they're going to have this contact experience and somehow this is going to equate to some form of a light enlightenment, and that is so far from the truth. Just because somebody has contact experiences, by no means does that necessarily make them enlightened. Number one. Number two, it doesn't make them know any better in certain aspects. Of course, they might understand the context, the dynamics of contact a little better, but it doesn't automatically give them a boost in moral principles. So please be aware of that. However, right, so this is kind of the alternate to the disclaimer, is contact and interactions can have a positive impact. So like, definitely I've seen people have contact experiences and be better because of it. And that's not going to be the case with everybody, but for sure, this is a potential, and I've seen it. I would argue in my own case, it had probably a positive impact on my own life in many different ways. Someone has to do it. So, here we're all, researching UFOs and whatnot, but who's doing the interacting with them? Somebody should be, right? Somebody should be going out there with a peaceful intent to start a dialogue, which is eventually going to take place. If these are, if there are these non-human intelligences out there, we're eventually going to have a conversation with them. So I think it's better if we start chipping away at that now, and you're going to have people that are ready and willing to interface with non-human intelligence. And I don't think anybody should tell us we can or can't do that, which may become a problem in the future. So I think if somebody feels the calling to do it, do it. Perspective enhancing is the next part that I want to discuss. It's one thing to read about UFOs, and that can expand your perception about reality. But when you have the direct experience, it's going to be 1,000 times over more perspective enhancing. You're just going to realize certain things that you didn't before, like have like insights and epiphanies because of the experience, most likely. Developing a unique skill set. I mean, here, if you can interact and interface with non-human intelligence, that's a pretty unique and, in my opinion, pretty cool skill set. Expanded awareness. And here in quotations, I put spiritual awakening, because you can also look at it in terms of that. Again, with the direct experience, you are most definitely going to have insights that you hadn't had before, and expanded awareness. It's going to expand your perception and what you're aware of on a different level. And again, I've seen that's my opinion. It's not going to do the opposite. Proactive approach to the UFO phenomenon. So I put this because, again, we study, as UFO researchers, we can study a lot of things. We can read books and learn what we can, but we're mostly reading about the past and things that have happened or things that are going on. With contact work, you're taking a proactive role, and you're directly working with understanding the UFO phenomenon in a very unique way. Next, I put firsthand experience and real-time research. And, for me early on, this is something I realized, again, you can read things in a book. That's one thing. You can read about martial arts or yoga or whatever it is, but to have firsthand experience brings forth a completely different and more direct, comprehensive understanding. I'm not saying you're going to do contact work and completely understand the UFO phenomenon or non-human intelligence, but it's definitely going to give you a different level of understanding that you couldn't have had any other way. So be aware of that. And I put human potential development because, in my opinion, through doing contact work and other things too, like meditation and whatever it is, right? I think we're increasing and expanding the human potential. So I think, through utilizing contact work and participating in it, especially over years, and of course individually, but also on a collective level, I think this is going to help humanity develop their potentials more. That's my opinion. Okay, so what is contact work? Here, credit where it's due. The most contemporary kind of version of contact work, the most well-known, I will say, is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And that was coined by Dr. Stephen Greer. A close encounter of the fifth kind is a human-initiated contact that is bilateral, so there's some kind of interaction between the human or group of humans and non-human intelligences or UFOs. The CE5 initiative is the initiative for CE5. So again, CE5 itself is the close encounter of the fifth kind or human-initiated contact. But the CE5 initiative was the collective effort of all the participants in CE5, where the goal of the CE5 initiative was to have a large decentralized group of humans, or people, right, that were taking a proactive role in contact to try to start a dialogue and foster peaceful contact with UFOs and non-human intelligence. So that is definitely one of the primary goals of the CE5 initiative. Here I put human-initiated contact events, or otherwise known as HICE. That was a term coined by Dr. Joseph Birx. And, CE5 itself, right, is not limited to the CE5 protocols, which were the methods and techniques that Dr. Stephen Greer developed to do CE5. So I'll say human-initiated contact events are, it's another term to describe CE5, but where you don't necessarily have to use the CE5 protocols, so to speak. So that's just one way that's a human-initiated contact events, or another way of describing CE5 with less of the baggage, right? And in Dr. Joseph Birx's opinion, he describes HICE as more accurate than the CE5 terminology. Mission Rama, I'm noting them because it's highly important to note that in 1974, almost 20 years before CSETI and Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind and CE5 was around, Mission Rama, led by Sixto Paswells and a group of his friends and family in South America, Lima, Peru, were doing essentially the same thing as CE5. They're going out and initiating contact with UFO intelligence in different ways, which I made a video on that if you want to get more into the detail of that. And individually based contact I put down here is because there's many of experiencers and contactees that have not used CE5, that haven't used HICE. They just spontaneously had their own contact events and subsequently would be able to go out and do contact, and as a part of their life. Basically, they didn't use any of these kind of contact work protocols, or some of them did have contact modalities. Here I have Dorothy Ezat and Christopher Bledsoe as notable individuals that they had their own mechanism and processes that I believe are organic and fluid and true to their personalities. And that's something that occurred, that way rather than using the CE5 protocols or going out with a group like a human initiated contact events heist. Okay, what to expect. What are some things that you can expect when you're going out to do contact work? So here we have anomalous phenomena that interacts with thought and intent, and that is extremely important. Because if you're seeing, lights in the sky and there's no kind of interaction with your thoughts or intents, that's, more than likely something prosaic or random or natural phenomenon. The kind of giveaway of CE5 and contact work is the correlation between your intentions and thoughts and the interaction process. So I put orbs, balls of light moving through the sky and or down in the actual circle or the yard or wherever he happened to be. Orbs can manifest and pop in and pop out and show up anywhere from somewhere in the sky to down right near you, right? Flash bulbs, I put because they're notable. You'll see them flash in the sky in a singular location. Sometimes they can just randomly pop in and pop out subsequently, one after the other, or a few seconds. Like you can have a flash bulb here, and then just a few seconds later, there's one all the way over here. Streakers. A lot of people may confuse these with meteors or comets, but there are ones that are clearly not, that are coming down from the horizon up into the sky, and others that are zigzagging. Those are not meteors or comets, so be aware of that. Impressions, and I put sense impressions here because during contact work or during contact experiences, a lot of time you're going to get different kinds of impressions. And I think a lot of this depends on your personality. Some people are going to have more visual impressions. Some people may have more auditory impressions. Some people might have more of a kinesthetic or a feeling impression, a knowing or a feeling, and or you can have a combination of all these, right? And it depends, on who you are as an individual, your own inclinations, and that particular contact experience itself, because different contact experiences can have different effects. Precognitive incidents and psychic phenomenon. So this can happen in a number of ways. You could have a kind of dream prior, and you actually see what's going to happen in the field. Or you might even just have a dream and see something that's representative of a contact that's going to occur, that when it actually happens out in the field, it's not the same, but there was still that correlation. You could also have again, just like the impressions above, you can have a knowing somehow or an intuition of where the contact is going to take place, either the actual location or where in the sky or what time that something is going to occur. And, this is just scratching the surface. Again, each one of these points can have its own slide or be its own presentation. I'm trying to kind of summarize here. Dreamtime or hypnagogic interactions. This can happen either prior to or after the contact experiences or the CE5 or the contact work. You can end up having a kind of dreamtime encounter with non-human intelligence or UFOs, and it can take shape in so many different ways. So I don't even want to suggest and limit to how that can happen, but you get the picture. Synchronicities and high strangeness. So this is something for me that goes, that heavily correlates with the UFO phenomenon, non-human intelligence, and close encounters, is that you can have a string of experiences. I'm sure some of you are familiar with my story, that all either lead to the contact or happen, that take place after the contact or even during the contact, but either by yourself or with a group, all these synchronicities are occurring. That is a level of high strangeness that's indicative of a true contact. Downloads, again, some people have more downloads than others, but you can intuit or gain insights through the contact. And again, synchronicities can play into this as well, where it seems I say downloads because it's like you're downloading information. People are kind of familiar with that term nowadays, and its correlation to the UFO phenomenon. You can gain these insights that seem to come out of nowhere through the contact. And I put electrical and equipment interference because, again, during contact events, it's been reported many times that somehow the equipment was affected by, the batteries dying or some kind of glitches occurring or equipment turning on and off, and even people with compasses where the compass is going backwards or being affected in different ways. Why do contact work? Well, as this was in my case, like you're already an experiencer. So if you're an experiencer, you may want to do contact work to try to gain more insight into contact or, UFOs and non-human intelligence. That was kind of my push to contact work and to do contact work. That might, again, if you're an experiencer, you might want to have nothing to do with contact work. So I'm just putting that out there. A self-disclosure, if you're reading about UFOs, you hear about it on the news, and you just want to have your own disclosure personally, like, is this real, right? Not even is the UFO phenomenon, but is this CE5 and contact work, is it real or is it nonsense? Well, this is one way to find out. Empowerment. I put empowerment because, again, you're taking contact and the UFO phenomenon by all means into your own hands. So that there's a sense of empowerment with that. Lack of trust for authority. I was going to reword that, but I almost don't know how else to say it. You don't have to be told what the UFO phenomenon is and what it means. That's your choice, right? You can take the initiative and find out for yourself. Some people might not like that, but why not? We've been lied to for this many years. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust everything people are saying, but this is your own way to find out for damn sure. Again, proactive approach I have here again, because I can't overemphasize that. It's a proactive approach that you're getting involved directly firsthand with engaging the phenomenon. Diplomatic outreach with non-human intelligence. Again, who's representing humans right now to UFO intelligence, to UFOs and UAP and non-human intelligence? A lot of the interactions we hear with are with the military, right? Of course, you hear stories of like the personal experiences people have, but again, there's a lot of emphasis on military encounters, and if people feel so inclined to begin to have a diplomatic outreach with UFO intelligence, this is one way that you can participate in that. And again, real-time research regarding UAP. If you want to have a deeper understanding of the UFO phenomenon and especially the contact phenomenon, you can do it yourself. How to participate. Contact modalities is generally what's described as, how you're going to participate in facilitating a contact experience or a close encounter, which is what contact work is. You can facilitate a close encounter with UFO intelligence by all these different means. You have the CE5 protocols. Some people don't like the association with Dr. Stephen Greer, and I perfectly understand that. Even if you don't like the guy, you could still use his protocols because they work. I'm just going to say that flat out. The CE5 protocols work, and they're a fail-safe way to go out and do contact. I've known so many people that have just tried the protocols and had success with them. That might not be the best approach for everybody, but I call the CE5 protocols like training wheels. If you take the process and you practice with it, eventually you're going to get good with it and you're going to have results with it. That might not mean that the C5 protocols are going to be your best method of doing contact, but it is something that works, for everybody. You might be a better boxer than at karate. That's kind of akin to this. It's a different technique and approach to contact. You might develop your own modality by practicing the C5 protocols. You're practicing the C5 protocols, and along the way you develop your own. The Rama contact method, I'm going to do a video on that sometime soon. I've talked about it in my interview with Enrique Villanueva. Rama has their own method, but it included meditation, fasting, and automatic writing. And they did that, with groups, and they had a whole series of practices, which I will do a video on sometime in the near future. Individually based methods is another way to participate. So you can develop your own protocol of contact. Again, maybe Christopher Bledsoe's individual process is going to be something more akin to prayer, right? That's getting into kind of a state of like that has probably worked for him. Dorothy Ezat had her own kind of method, right? I've developed my own method that just works for me really good, which is akin to the Buddhist meditation style of metta. And how to participate, I put solo and group work, because you can do it on your own and you can do it with a group. Most people recommend a group. For me, solo, just doing it on my own is highly effective. And I have a lot of personal insights that way and experience, but I've done it many, many, many times with groups as well. And I have found both practices are important, and there's a lot you can learn from doing it both ways. Some people feel safer in groups. Some people feel more empowered in groups. So that's one thing to consider. And spontaneous encounters I put because, close encounters and contact can occur spontaneously, especially after you do your first kind of contact work thing, right? So you go out for the first time, do contact work, that channel is kind of open now. So afterwards, there could be spontaneous encounters where you didn't do any of the protocols or contact modalities, but you had the initial experience, and now you're having different spontaneous encounters occur. So that's, again, something else that can happen. General practices and setup. So here, again, generally speaking, an open and quiet area is ideal for location. It could just be your backyard. That's fine. It's not limited to, you can be in a city and it will still work. But for some people, that's mentally distracting or discouraging. So your mentality is highly important to the process. But generally speaking, if you can get into an open and quiet area, that will be very ideal. I put the group setup. Oh, sorry about that. Let me go back here. Sorry, I skipped ahead too much. So the group setup, chairs and equipment. There's people that use different levels of equipment. Some people literally just put out a circle of chairs with a group, and you might have one person with a laser, which, again, if you're going to use lasers, you have to make sure they're legal in your area, in your state or country. Don't just go around using lasers. They're not a toy. That's a disclaimer for the lasers. If you don't have to use it, don't use it. Can they be effective in signaling sometimes? Yeah, that's just the reality of it. And also, again, a lot of times with lasers, you're not just trying to signal back and forth with an object, which you can do, but you're pointing it out to the entire group, like, hey, look towards this location. Never shine a laser directly at any object, especially a UAP, right? Just don't do it. But you can, circle the general area. But again, you have to be super careful. I would not even recommend shining the laser light anywhere near the object, just like behind it somewhere, so people get the general idea of where to look. Practice and group exercises. So again, a lot of people use different group meditations or group visualizations. Uh, and, the more you do this in a group, the more everybody's in sync, the better it's going to be. You want to be comfortable and familiar with what you're doing, and with the people that you're with, you want to be comfortable with them. And, doing the regular protocols or different exercises, like, somebody's doing a guided meditation, or if everybody has a similar intent and they're listening to binaural beats together, something along those lines is good enough to get the work done. Facilitating group coherence is extremely important, in my opinion. That's going to be one of the most important things with working with a group is group coherence. And this has been something that's been documented with random number generators. Is if you have a two or more people that have a very close relationship, or they're coherent, the effect is going to be exponential. Heart rate variability I put on here because this kind of goes a little bit with facilitating group coherence, but on a more direct level. You can look into the research and meditations for heart rate variability if you want to build coherence. HeartMath has actually done the science behind it to demonstrate the different electromagnetic fields of the heart, and again, if the electromagnetic fields are kind of going out there, and you're with a group of people and everybody's fields are meshing together, that's going to create a coherence. So if you have the entire group in a state of heart rate variability, in my opinion, you're going to have a tremendous effect. And spontaneous encounters, before or after, even when you're in a group, either yourself or other people in the group, or even if you're doing the solo, may have spontaneous either insights or encounters where you didn't even start the protocols yet, or the contact modalities, and things happen either before or after the actual contact work session. So that's something to be aware of and look out for and be open to. Post-contact considerations. So, whether you're with a group or you're solo, you can do an evaluation. Like, if you want to, you can document what happened, right, in a notepad or on your phone, and kind of go over in your mind, or if you're with a group, you can talk to people of kind of what happened. Even if you went out solo and there's somebody you can really trust, you can kind of talk with them about, what happened during the contact event, or the contact work session. Comparing notes, again, if you're with a group, you can explain different parts of your experience that you experienced in your meditation, or maybe different impressions or insights that you got during the contact, and compare notes, because a lot of times you'll have these impressions, and everybody's sitting in a circle, and they're in different parts of the circle, and or you're doing meditation and you don't get to bring it up, but afterwards you can compare notes. There, a lot of times you're going to find some really interesting synchronicities, and also you can learn from what other people are sharing from the contact work as well. So there's many levels to that. Grounding and renormalizing I put here because after you do the contact work, or after you have a contact experience, it's really good to, like, it can be very elating and you're kind of in that space. It could be really helpful to get grounded and renormalize, kind of come back to consensus reality a little bit, because again, it's going to affect people differently. And you can ground and renormalize again just by talking to people, not even kidding, eating something and just giving yourself a little time, and just kind of coming down, relaxing a little bit. Because again, if you go out and you do contact work and it's very exciting, you kind of do have to renormalize a little bit, because you're dealing with something extraordinary, in my opinion. and I put plan for the next event. So if you're with a group of people, or even if you're solo, you can kind of plan, okay, like how did this session go, and when should I do it again? Okay, here. Sorry about that. Suggestions and advice. So I put learn and practice meditation and subtle energy. This is, again, just a suggestion of mine, because learning and practicing meditation, I think, is going to augment your contact work. So it's gonna enhance your contact work, in my opinion. And also it can help with your grounding, right? And it can help you, be more settled and even calm when the contact does occur. If you have a consistent and grounded meditation practice, it's gonna carry over into your contact work. And I put subtle energy because, doing subtle energy work is going to refine your awareness to more subtle aspects of reality, and including, during contact. If you're attuned to subtle energy and you're experienced with it, there are many different things that you might pick up during contact or even after the contact, and you'll realize different things, that having dealt with subtle energy, because some contact phenomena can occur and it's very akin to subtle energy. And I know for some people that's going to sound woo, but I'm telling it like it is. You might not like that, but it's true. Regular practice with contact work. So again, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. If you're dedicated and you're enthusiastic, you're likely going to get really good really good results eventually, right? The more time you put into it and the more effort you put into it, the greater results you're going to yield, pretty much. And here I put experiment. And you can experiment with all different types of things. You can experiment with different contact modalities. You can experiment with different requests, right? Say you see a flash bulb or an orb in the sky. You can experiment either by yourself or with a group by intending, if the object just stops where it is, or you can experiment by saying, flash twice instead of once, or whatever it is. And, sure enough, an object can flash twice. And, again, that's it's showing that there is a direct connection to the consciousness, to thought, and to intention. So, and again, you can experiment with many different contact protocols. You can experiment with solo or group. Does using binaural beats prior to the contact work enhance the contact for me? Or maybe it doesn't, for some reason that method doesn't work good for you. So again, you can experiment with different modes of concentration and meditation. Like for some reason, pranayama works really well for me. Is that going to carry over to your contact? So there's many different things you can experiment with. Remain open-minded yet skeptical, I put here, because you want to be open-minded. You don't want to trap contact in a box of how you think it should happen. So sometimes it's good to be open-minded in the sense where you're going to let the contact unfold and occur the way it does without expecting it to happen a certain way. But you also want to be skeptical in the sense where, not every light in the sky is going to be a UFO. Most lights in the sky are not going to be UFOs. So, make sure that there's that part of you that's skeptical. You don't want that to interfere with your conviction that the process works, because that you could have a kind of dilemma there where your skepticism can affect the process itself. So be aware of that, and you might have to work. That might take some time for you to work at, and that's just part of the process. You have to learn to balance them. Being open-minded yet skeptical, and going through process of elimination, and just being open-minded. But having a support network, you want to have a support network. Whether they're experiencers or close friends or, people that you can trust or just have support you in this. So you're not just going it alone. Even if you're doing solos, if there's somebody you can talk to about what you're doing, and you have some kind of support network, whether you're talking to them about this directly or just other things, and you have a strong support network there for you in case things, get exciting. Let me put it like that. Speak with other experiencers is also can be very helpful. People that have had experiences too. Speaking with them is I've found over the years is super helpful for so many different reasons. So if you're going to be doing this, whether you're an experiencer already or not, speaking with other experiencers is a good idea. Have something to ground you. And, I'm just saying this for, whatever stage you're at in your life, you should have something that's going to ground you. Because this can have heavy implications again on your psyche, on different parts of your life. So it's good to have that rock in your life, something that you can lean on. Whether that's a set of hobbies that you have that help ground you, or people, or whatever it is. You have a solid job, or you have something that's going to kind of keep you grounded, because it's easy to have an amazing experience and all of a sudden you're you can lose your footing. It's so have something that's going to ground you constant in your life, especially if you're doing this kind of work. Working in a group or creating a working group can be super effective. If you're going to do this regularly and seriously, you might want to consider doing it in a group. I mean, again, by all means, you can just keep doing it solo and that's fine, but you might want to create a group and start building and working out that way. So we have the summary here of kind of everything I went over, from the disclaimer. Again, you don't want to just jump into this blindly and like, oh, wow, that's cool. Let me do it. Think about it. Consider everything that can occur. Again, however, there can be a lot of pros to this. That's something you have to decide for yourself. And again, what is contact work? Contact work is any kind of form of going out and initiating contact, either by yourself or with a group. Why do contact work? Again, everybody's going to have their own personal reason for doing contact work. But it's good to know for yourself why you're doing it. And there, in my opinion, are important reasons why people would do it. And again, we went over participation. You can use the CE5 protocols. You can research contact modalities. Grant Cameron wrote a fantastic book called Contact Modalities that goes over dozens and dozens of different ways that people have initiated contact over millennia, right? Because shamans, in some sense, have been doing contact work, and many groups that you've never heard of, and many individuals have had contact experiences and had their own contact processes. So there's almost there's so many different ways to participate in contact work. And again, if you appreciate this video and this presentation, which there will be several more coming out regarding contact work, and the subsequent ones getting a little deeper into interactions, because again, this is as surface level as it gets as in regards to contact work. Again, if you want to support us, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, leave a comment, you can share the video, you can become a Patreon member, and you can give feedback and recommendations about this presentation, which is my first, so apologies, or any other work that I do. I'm open to feedback and recommendations always. And again, more to come. I'm going to be doing a number of presentations on this channel, especially around contact and contact work. I will be doing other ones as well. So this is going to become a kind of normal part of the channel, and doing these kind of slideshow presentations, because it's something I want to explore. And anytime you see me talk anywhere, I'm always just spitting off the top of my head. and maybe this will keep me on track for certain subjects, and I can organize, have a more structured discussion with you guys. And again, if you have suggestions or feedback regarding this or other topics you want to see me cover, I'm always open to feedback. And again, so much gratitude. Everybody has been super supportive, and I appreciate the community and all the support, and everybody who shares information with me, whether it's research information or their experiences. Much gratitude. So we really appreciate that. So that's basically that as far as an introduction into contact work. Each one of those slides could have been its own presentation, really. But I just wanted to give a basic overview of what contact work is and maybe how you can participate. So I hope you guys appreciate this, and I will be doing many more presentations in the future. So thank you so much for staying and watching this, guys. Take care.